The Game of Life and How to Play It, by Florence Scovel Shinn. Introduction. There once was a woman who found herself completely out of options. She was worn out, dejected, and discouraged, with just $8 to her name in the entire world. Standing in the heart of New York City, the reasoning part of her mind, the part that deals in logic and evidence, told her to stay put, to find work, to cling to every last cent. It was the sensible thing to do. But she had another voice inside her, a quiet, insistent whisper. A hunch. This hunch told her to do the exact opposite of what made sense. It told her to take the little money she had and buy a train ticket back to her hometown, a place she associated with lack and limitation. It was a move that looked like surrender, like failure. But she had been given a strange piece of advice: never violate a hunch. And so, with a leap of what others would call foolishness, she went home. Shortly after arriving, she reconnected with an old family friend, and through a series of events so remarkable they could only be called miraculous, she received thousands of dollars. Her life was transformed, not by a grand plan, but by trusting a quiet feeling and following a strange instruction from a woman who taught that life wasn't a battle to be fought, but a game to be played. That teacher was Florence Scovel Shinn, and the instructions came from her quietly revolutionary book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, first self-published back in 1925. Shinn was not your typical spiritual guru. Born into a blue blood family with roots tracing back to the Mayflower, she began her career not as a teacher, but as an artist and book illustrator in New York City. But after a divorce in 1912, her life took a new direction, and she delved into a spiritual philosophy known as New Thought. What she discovered, she believed, were the hidden rules of life. She saw that the Bible wasn't just a collection of stories, but a rule book for a spiritual game. And for the rest of her life, from her teaching platform in New York, she dedicated herself to making these profound, metaphysical ideas simple and practical enough for everyday people to use. Her little book, filled with incredible stories and punchy affirmations, became an underground classic, a secret passed from friend to friend, long before the world of self-help became what it is today. And the ideas in this book are as potent now as they were a century ago. So, what is the great secret she uncovered? What are the rules to this game? That's the promise of our time together today. By the end of this journey, you will understand the fundamental laws that are shaping your reality at this very moment. You'll discover why your imagination is not a frivolous daydreaming tool, but a powerful pair of scissors, constantly cutting out the events and circumstances of your future. You will learn how the casual, everyday words you speak are casting spells, for good or for ill, creating laws for yourself that must be fulfilled. And most importantly, you will be handed the master key to winning the game, a key that unlocks the door to abundance, love, joy, and the perfect expression of who you were always meant to be. This isn't just about thinking positively, it's about learning to play the game of life with mastery. Book summary. Most of us walk through life with the deeply ingrained belief that it is a battle. We see a world of competition, of struggle, of winners and losers. We fight for our goals, we battle our circumstances, and we brace for the next challenge. But the very first rule that Florence Scovel Shinn lays down is a radical reframing of this entire perspective. She says, life is not a battle, it is a game. And it's not a game of chance. It's a game of rules. Spiritual laws that are as real and as consistent as the law of gravity. The problem is, most of us are playing this game without ever having read the rule book. The fundamental law of this game, the one upon which all others are built, is the law of giving and receiving. You may have heard it called by other names, the law of cause and effect, or as the ancient texts put it, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. This isn't a moral judgment. It's not about reward and punishment. Shinn presents it as a simple, impersonal law of the universe. Whatever you send out into the world, in your thoughts, your words, and your actions, creates a pattern, a vibration, that will eventually return to you. If you give out love, you will receive love. If you send out criticism, you will receive criticism. If you cheat, you will be cheated. Life, in this sense, is a game of boomerangs. Your thoughts, words, and deeds are the boomerangs you throw. You can be sure that, sooner or later, they will circle back and find you. Shinn tells a simple, amusing story about a friend of hers who was learning this lesson. This friend admitted that she often directed her irritability towards her aunt. One day at dinner, as her aunt was talking, she snapped, "No more talk, I wish to eat in peace." The very next day, this same woman was at lunch with someone she desperately wanted to impress. She was talking animatedly, trying to be charming, when the other person looked at her coolly and said, "No more talk, I wish to eat in peace." The boomerang came back with astonishing speed and precision. Once you understand this first rule, you realize that your focus shouldn't be on changing the world outside of you, but on mastering the world within you. Because what's happening inside is what you are sowing, and the primary tools you use for sowing are your imagination and your words. This brings us to the next crucial part of the game: understanding the machinery of your own mind. Shinn breaks the mind down into 3 departments. First, there is the conscious mind. This is the part you're using right now to listen and think. It's your reasoning mind, your intellect. It observes the world, forms opinions, and makes decisions. It sees life as it appears to be, a world of sickness, poverty, and limitations. Then, there is the subconscious mind. This is the engine room. The subconscious, she says, is simply power, without direction. It's like electricity or steam. It doesn't think or reason, it simply acts upon the instructions it's given. It's your faithful, unquestioning servant. And what are the instructions it follows? The images, feelings, and beliefs that are impressed upon it by your conscious mind. Whatever you feel deeply or picture clearly gets stamped into this powerful, creative part of you, and it begins to work tirelessly, day and night, to bring that picture into your reality in the most minute detail. Shinn tells a haunting story about a woman she knew. When this woman was a little girl, she loved to play a peculiar game of make-believe. She would dress up in black clothes, put on a long black veil, and pretend to be a widow. Adults found it clever and amusing. But what she was doing, day after day, was stamping a powerful picture onto her impressionable subconscious mind. Years later, she grew up and married a man she loved deeply. But after a short time, he died, and she found herself wearing black and a sweeping veil for many years, living out the very picture she had created in her childhood play. The subconscious mind has no sense of humor. It doesn't know what's a joke and what's real. It just takes the image and goes to work. This is why Shinn called the imagination the scissors of the mind. Imagine that. With every persistent thought, with every vivid daydream, you are holding a pair of scissors and cutting out the scenes that will one day appear in the movie of your life. The question is, what are you cutting out? She gives another stark example: a man who lived in fear of a certain rare disease. He couldn't stop thinking about it. He pictured it constantly, read every article he could find about it, until that vivid mental image was so deeply impressed upon his subconscious that it manifested in his body. He died, Shinn says, a victim of his own distorted imagination. So, if the conscious mind is the captain on the bridge, and the subconscious is the mighty engine below, what is the third department? Shinn calls it the superconscious mind. This is the God mind within you. It is the realm of perfect ideas, where the flawless version of your life already exists. Plato called it the perfect pattern. Shinn calls it the divine design. There is a divine plan for your life. A place you are meant to fill that no one else can fill. Something you are meant to do that no one else can do. This perfect plan is held in your superconscious mind. Sometimes, it flashes into your conscious mind as a sudden inspiration, a grand ambition, or an ideal that seems too good to be true. Shinn says this isn't a fantasy. It's your true destiny, your destination, being revealed to you from the infinite intelligence within yourself. The problem is, many of us are ignorant of our true destinies. We are striving for things that don't belong to us, chasing goals that, even if we attained them, would only bring dissatisfaction. This is where so much of our struggle comes from. We are trying to force a reality that isn't in alignment with our divine design. She gives a wonderful example of this. A woman came to her, deeply in love with a man she called A.B. She wanted Shinn to speak the word so that he would marry her. Shinn refused, explaining that this would be a violation of spiritual law, trying to force her personal will on the situation. Instead, she said she would speak the word for the right man to come into her life, the divine selection, the man who belonged to her by divine right. She told the woman, if A.B. is the right man, you can't lose him. If he isn't, you will receive his equivalent. The woman continued to see A.B., but their friendship made no progress. Then one evening, she called Shinn and said something remarkable. Do you know, for the last week, hasn't seemed so wonderful to me. By releasing her desperate grip on one specific outcome and opening up to the divine plan, her perception was already changing. Soon after, she met another man who fell in love with her instantly. He told her she was his ideal, saying all the things she had always wished A.B. would say. She soon fell in love with him and lost all interest in A.B. This, Shinn explains, is the law of substitution. When you let go of a wrong idea and ask for the right one, you don't experience loss or sacrifice. The universe simply substitutes the perfect plan for your imperfect one. This leads us to the most practical and powerful tool in the game, the spoken word. If the imagination provides the blueprint, our words are the command that sets the whole creative process in motion. As Shinn quotes from the scriptures, "By your words ye are justified, and by your words ye are condemned." She believed that a person who knows the power of their word becomes incredibly careful about their conversation. You only need to watch the reactions in your own life to know that your words do not return void. They are a tremendous vibratory force, constantly molding your body and your affairs. Through your spoken word, you are continually making laws for yourself. Shinn knew a man who constantly said, "I always miss a car. It invariably pulls out just as I arrive." And for him, it was true. That was the law he had decreed for himself. His daughter, on the other hand, had a different law. She would say, "I always catch a car. It's sure to come just as I get there." And for her, that was her reality. They had each created a law, one of failure and one of success, with their own words. This is the hidden psychology behind superstitions. A rabbit's foot or a horseshoe has no power in itself. The power comes from the person's belief and spoken word that it will bring good luck. This creates an expectancy in the subconscious mind, which then attracts a lucky situation. We see the destructive power of idle words in another of Shinn's stories. A woman came to her wondering why her life had become one of poverty and limitation, when she had formerly had a beautiful home and plenty of money. After talking for a while, they discovered the cause. The woman admitted that she had often grown tired of managing her home and would say repeatedly, "I'm sick and tired of things, I wish I lived in a trunk." And now, she confessed, "Today I am living in that trunk." She had literally spoken herself into a miserable, cramped existence. The subconscious, with its lack of humor, simply took her at her word. Similarly, she tells of a woman who had a great deal of money but was always joking about getting ready for the poorhouse. Within a few years, she was nearly destitute. She had impressed her subconscious with a picture of lack, and it had faithfully delivered. But here is the wonderful news: the law works both ways. Just as you can joke yourself into unhappy experiences, you can affirm yourself into wonderful ones. This is the purpose of affirmations. They are carefully chosen words designed to overwrite the old, negative records in the subconscious mind. An affirmation is a statement of truth that you declare, with faith, to be true in your life, even if the outward evidence doesn't yet show it. Shinn gives a powerful affirmation to erase old mistakes. I now smash and demolish by my spoken word every untrue record in my subconscious mind. They shall return to the dust heap of their native nothingness, for they came from my own vain imaginings. I now make my perfect records through the Christ within, the records of health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. Notice the power and authority in those words. You are not asking or pleading, you are commanding. You are decreeing a new reality. The Bible says, "Concerning the works of my hands, command ye me." Shinn teaches that infinite intelligence is always ready to carry out our demands, from the smallest to the greatest. Every desire, whether you speak it aloud or not, is a demand. Sometimes the fulfillment is startlingly literal. One Easter, Shinn saw beautiful rose trees in a florist's window and had a fleeting wish that she would receive one. For just a moment, she mentally saw it being carried through her door. On Easter, a beautiful rose tree arrived. When she thanked her friend, the friend was confused. "I didn't send you a rose tree," she said. "I sent you lilies." The florist had mixed up the order. But Shinn knew it wasn't a mistake. She had started the law in motion with her clear desire, and she simply had to have a rose tree. So, if these laws are so powerful, why don't our lives look perfect? Shinn says there is only one enemy, one thing that stands between you and your highest ideals. That enemy is fear. Fear of lack, fear of failure, fear of sickness, fear of loss. Fear, she explains, is just inverted faith. It is faith in evil instead of good. When you worry, you are using your creative imagination to build a detailed blueprint of what you don't want. You are meditating on disaster. And the faithful subconscious takes that blueprint and gets to work. The object of the game of life, then, is to see clearly one's good and to obliterate all mental pictures of evil. You do this by consciously impressing the subconscious with a realization of good. The way to defeat fear is to substitute it with faith. But what is faith, really? For Shinn, faith isn't just a passive belief. It is active faith. It is acting as if you have already received. She tells a dramatic story about a woman who was about to be sued for $3,000 on the 15th of the month. She had no way of getting the money and was in total despair. Shinn told her that God was her supply and spoke the word for her to receive the money at the right time. But she also gave her a crucial instruction: you must act your perfect faith. The 15th arrived, and there was no money. The woman called Shinn in a panic. Shinn's advice was astounding. Your part is to act rich, she said, thereby showing perfect faith that you will receive it. She even told the woman to order an expensive lunch, to act as if she already had the $3,000 in the bank. The next day, the woman's long-lost cousin with a long white beard showed up unexpectedly at her door. Just as he was leaving, he asked about her finances and offered to give her $3,000. Even then, there was another hurdle. He said he'd give it to her on the 1st of the month, but she needed it the next day. Shinn kept treating, affirming that spirit is never too late. The next morning, the cousin called and told her to come to his office and get the money that very day. She had the money in her account that afternoon. Her breakthrough came because she was willing to act her faith. Shinn explains that if you ask for success but prepare for failure, you will get the situation you have prepared for. This is the principle of digging your ditches. The phrase comes from a story in the Bible about three kings who were stranded in the desert with their armies, without water. They consulted the prophet Elisha, who gave them a bizarre message from the Lord: "Ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet make this valley full of ditches." In other words, prepare for the water you've asked for, even when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. She saw this principle work for a woman looking for an apartment in New York during a severe housing shortage. Everyone told her it was impossible. But she simply affirmed, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for the right apartment." Then, she performed an act of faith. She was thinking of buying new blankets, but the voice of reason said, "Don't buy them, you might not get an apartment." She replied to herself, "I'll dig my ditches by buying the blankets." She acted as though she already had the apartment. In a miraculous way, she found a place and was chosen over 200 other applicants. The blankets, Shinn says, showed active faith. This leads to one of the most difficult but crucial laws in the game, the law of non-resistance. The scriptures say, "Resist not evil." This doesn't mean to be passive or to allow harm. It means to understand that in ultimate reality, there is only one power, God, so there is no evil to resist. Evil, Shinn teaches, is a false law that man has created for himself through a belief in two powers, good and evil. When you resist a situation, you are giving it power. You are focusing on it, energizing it, and holding it in place. What you resist, persists. If you run away from a situation, it will run after you. Shinn tells of a woman who was very unhappy at home because of her domineering, critical mother. So she ran away and got married, only to discover that her new husband was exactly like her mother. She had the same situation to face again because she had tried to resist it instead of dissolving it. So how do you dissolve a negative situation? Not by fighting it, but by blessing it. Agree with thine adversary quickly. This means you agree that the adverse situation is good, you remain undisturbed by it, and it falls away of its own weight. You baptize the failure as success. A woman Shinn knew was trying to demonstrate financial abundance, but was constantly thrown in with a man who talked only of lack and limitation, making her feel poor. She began to dislike and blame him for her failures. Then she realized she was resisting the situation, seeing two powers instead of one. So she changed her approach. She began to bless the man and baptize the situation's success. She affirmed, "As there is only one power, God, this man is here for my good and my prosperity." Soon after, through this very man, she met someone who gave her several $1,000s. The man then moved to a distant city and faded harmoniously from her life. She gives a powerful affirmation for this: "Every man is a golden link in the chain of my good." When you bless your enemy, you rob him of his ammunition. The arrows of hate he sends are transmuted into blessings. This is because all inharmony on the outside is a reflection of some inharmony within you. When you change, your world changes. Love and goodwill are the ultimate problem solvers. Shinn states that nearly all sickness and unhappiness come from a violation of the law of love. A woman she knew had a terrible skin disease that doctors called incurable. She was an actress and feared her career was over. One day, after a successful performance, a jealous cast member had her fired. She was filled with hatred and resentment, but cried out, "Oh God, don't let me hate that man." For 3 nights, she worked to find a place of deep peace, to be at peace with him and the whole world. On the 3rd day, she discovered the skin disease was completely gone. Her resentment was the mental cause, and when she replaced it with love, the physical effect disappeared. This brings us to the law of karma and its transcendent counterpart, the law of forgiveness. Karma, as we've seen, is the law of comeback. You reap what you sow. But Shinn brings the good news that you are not eternally bound by your past mistakes. Christianity, she says, is founded upon the law of forgiveness. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of karmic law. The Christ within each of us is our Redeemer from all inharmonious conditions. We can call on the law of forgiveness to neutralize our mistakes. She tells a fascinating story of a woman who came to her, upset because she had been given a counterfeit $20 bill at the bank. Shinn asked her to analyze the situation and find out why she had attracted it. The woman suddenly remembered, "I know. I sent a friend a lot of stage money, just for a joke." The law, which doesn't know about jokes, had simply sent her some stage money in return. So, they called upon the law of forgiveness. They affirmed that the woman was now under grace and not under law, and could not lose the $20 which was hers by divine right. Shinn told her to go back to the bank fearlessly and explain the mistake. She did, and to her amazement, they apologized and gave her a genuine bill without any argument. Knowledge of the law gives you the power to rub out your mistakes. But how do we handle the heavy burdens of fear, resentment, and worry that seem so hard to shake? This is where Shinn introduces one of her most practical techniques, casting the burden. She references the scripture, "Cast thy burden upon the Lord." The Lord, in this context, is the superconscious mind, the Christ within, the all-powerful God Self. The burden is any adverse thought or condition, which has its root in the subconscious. Trying to fight these deep-seated beliefs with your conscious, reasoning mind is often ineffective, because the intellect is filled with doubts and fears. The scientific way, she says, is to consciously hand the problem over to the superconscious. You make a statement, over and over, with determination. For a burden of lack, you would say, "I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free to have plenty." For a burden of resentment, "I cast this burden of resentment on the Christ within, and I go free, to be loving, harmonious, and happy." As you repeat this statement, sometimes for hours at a time, you are lifting the problem out of the limited human mind and placing it in the hands of the all-powerful God mind. Your vision clears, a feeling of relief sets in, and soon, the manifestation of good follows. This leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, listening for guidance. Once you have made your demand, cast your burden, and aligned yourself with your good, how do you know what to do next? The answer comes through your intuition, your hunch. Shinn believed that intuition is a spiritual faculty, our direct line to the superconscious mind. It is our unerring guide. It doesn't explain itself, it simply points the way. Your job is to learn to recognize and obey these intuitive leads. The instruction is to speak your word, and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. You must demand the lead, saying, "Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way, let me know if there's anything for me to do." The answer can come in many forms: a sudden thought, a chance remark from a stranger, a passage in a book that seems to jump out at you. A woman she knew wanted a large sum of money. She made her affirmation, and then asked for a definite lead. The thought came quickly and clearly: give a certain friend $100. This was a friend who had helped her spiritually. Her rational mind might have rebelled, "Give away money when I need money," but she trusted the lead, made the gift, and shortly after, a large sum of money came to her in a remarkable way. Giving opens the way for receiving. Sometimes a lead can seem completely random. One day, Shinn felt a strong urge to go to a bakery a few blocks away. Her reasoning mind argued that there was nothing she wanted there. But she had learned not to reason with intuition, so she went. She looked at everything and confirmed that she didn't want anything. But as she was leaving, she ran into a woman she had been thinking of, who was in great need of the exact help Shinn could provide. She had been guided there for a divine appointment. This is all leading to the ultimate goal of the game: to bring into manifestation the divine design of your life. As we've learned, there is a perfect plan for you held in the superconscious mind. This plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This is the square of life, which brings perfect happiness. Your highest demand, therefore, should be, Infinite Spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius within me now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. When you make this demand, be prepared for big changes, because most of us have wandered far from our true path. But the new conditions will be wonderful. Your perfect self-expression will never feel like a chore. It will be so absorbing it will feel like play. And because you came into this world financed by God, the supply needed for your perfect self-expression will always be at hand. Shinn tells the moving story of a man who came to her class and handed her a single cent. He said, "I have just 7 cents in the world, and I'm going to give you one, for I have faith in the power of your spoken word. I want you to speak the word for my perfect self-expression and prosperity." Shinn spoke the word for him. A year later, he returned, successful and happy, with a roll of bills in his pocket. He explained that immediately after she had spoken the word, he was offered a position in a distant city, and his life had completely turned around. He had aligned himself with his divine design, and the universe had rushed in to support him. In the end, the rules of the game are simple, though they require conscious practice. It all boils down to 3 things: fearless faith, non-resistance, and love. You must have faith that you are backed by an all-powerful, loving intelligence. You must practice non-resistance, blessing your challenges instead of fighting them. And you must send out love and goodwill to all, knowing that love is the fulfilling of the law, the most powerful magnetic force in the universe. By playing the game with these rules, you transform yourself and your world. You stop being a victim of circumstance and become a master of the game, consciously creating a life that reflects the perfect pattern held for you in the heart of the divine. Commentary. It's truly remarkable to think that this little book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, was written a full century ago, long before the modern explosion of self-help and manifesting literature. Yet, its message feels incredibly current, perhaps more necessary now than ever before. In a world that often feels chaotic, overwhelming, and deeply unfair, Florence Scovel Shinn's work is a powerful anchor. It hands the steering wheel of life back to us. Her central message is one of radical empowerment. You are not a pawn being moved by random forces. You are the player, and your own consciousness is the game board. The true genius of Shinn's teaching is its profound simplicity. She takes vast, complex metaphysical concepts, the nature of consciousness, the power of thought, the laws of karma, and distills them into practical, actionable rules and unforgettable stories. The idea of the imagination as the scissors of the mind is an image that stays with you. The concept of digging your ditches by acting your faith is a clear, tangible directive. She doesn't ask you to understand complex theology. She asks you to watch your words, to train your imagination, and to trust your hunches. What resonates so deeply today is this call to take complete responsibility for our inner world. We live in an age of external focus. We blame the economy, the politicians, our upbringing, other people. Shinn gently but firmly turns our gaze inward. She says the source of your poverty, your sickness, your loneliness, or your failure is not out there. It's within your own thought patterns. A man's foes, she says, quoting scripture, shall be they of his own household, the household of his own mind. This can be a hard pill to swallow, but it is also the most liberating idea in the world. Because if the problem is within you, so is the solution. To bring these timeless ideas into your life today, here are a few simple, practical actions you can take, inspired by the rules of the game. 1. Conduct a word audit for 24 hours. For just one day, become a neutral observer of your own speech. Carry a small notebook or use your phone, and make a note of the casual, reflexive things you say about yourself, your life, and your circumstances. Do you say things like, I'm always broke by the end of the month. I can never catch a break, or I'm just so tired all the time. Don't judge yourself. Just observe. At the end of the day, look at your list. These are the laws you have been unconsciously decreeing for yourself. This simple act of awareness is the first, crucial step to changing the game. 2. Pick one burden to cast. Think of one specific problem that is weighing on you right now. It could be a financial worry, a difficult relationship, a health concern. Instead of wrestling with it, try Shinn's method. Find a quiet moment, close your eyes, and say aloud, with as much conviction as you can muster, I cast this burden of name the problem on the Christ within, and I go free. Repeat it. Feel the energetic release of handing it over to a power greater than your conscious mind. Do this every time the worry creeps back in. You are training yourself to let go and allow a higher intelligence to work. 3. Perform one act of faith. Identify something you deeply desire. Then ask yourself, if I knew with absolute certainty that this was coming to me, what is one small, practical thing I would do to prepare for it? This is your ditch to dig. If you want a new job, you might buy a new notebook to take notes in on your first day. If you want a loving relationship, you might clear a drawer in your dresser. It doesn't have to be a big, expensive act. It's a symbolic gesture that signals to your subconscious mind, this is real. This is happening. It is the bridge of active faith that moves your desire from the invisible to the visible. In the end, Shinn's greatest lesson is that life is meant to be a joyous unfolding, not a grim battle. The universe is not against you. It is a loving, intelligent system designed to support you, waiting for your clear direction. The rules of the game are written in your own heart. The power to play it brilliantly is in your own mind, your own imagination, and your own words. The game is on. It's your move. That was our deep dive into the game of life and how to play it. We've uncovered the core rules today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The real magic happens when you walk the land yourself. The full power of this book is in its stories and affirmations, which can click with you in a way you'd never expect. This journey was to show you the map. If the landscape looks inviting, if anything we discussed sparked something in you, I encourage you to get a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning, it's about experiencing a shift that can genuinely change the way you play the game of your life. The link is in the description. Also, if this exploration brought you any value, please show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next adventure into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.